we will close the day with an exceptional talent, a creative talent. You've witnessed the conversation with Florian, who spoke about creative leadership, indicating what the new normal will be, and being radical, being honest, and all of these beautiful qualities that real creative leaders should have. Well, please sit down and listen to the story, listen to the journey of a true creative leader. I'm talking about Sevil Peach, born in Turkey, educated as an interior architect in the UK and based in the UK ever since. She based her own studio in 1994 with Gary Turnbull, and ever since created, I don't know how many, but dozens and dozens of, in particular, offices. She worked for brands like Microsoft, Deloitte, Novartis, and Vitra, a lot for Vitra. She designed the campuses, the offices of Vitra in Weil am Rhein, Biersfelden, but also numerous fairs, showrooms, and offices throughout Europe and the USA. Tonight, she will receive the first Frame Lifetime Achievement Award. So it's, for me, a very special moment to announce and to ask to come to the stage Sevil Peach. A really warm applause, please.
Hi. Thank you, Robert. So now can people hear me? Because this is all very odd. Thank you for lovely words, and I'm honored to be here, of course. I noticed everybody left as you introduced me, but I just put this. It's nothing to do with me, that is so. Wait a minute. I'm all tangled up. There we go. So, I just thought I would talk to you about my journey, and that's a 52 years journey. It's half a century, so I guess through the work that I've done, you will see whether I'm a born talent or whether it is something I learned along the way. And it is a true story, and I'm not going to embellish it too much with being, haven't I done well? So basically, first year at college, university in Brighton, and unfortunately, I did a lot of political activities, and I got kicked out of college at the end of the first year as the tutors defined me as a communist. So this was my first blow in this design world, and it did hurt me because I thought I was just being right by having a big demonstration at college, because they sacked one of my tutors, but it was a blow. So the head of department said, go out and see the real world, get a job, and then maybe you can come back. But when I did come back a year later, I couldn't find a job. I just worked as a waitress, and I found that the college didn't want me because I was a troublemaker. Just then, this was difficult as a foreign student, and I kind of begged them to take me back, and they said, I'll give you 3 months. You have to show that you're really working hard, etc., etc. Just then, thank God, there was a competition for the dean of the university for a desk design. He was an engineer, and so this is the desk that I've designed. and quite crude, really. I mean, we are talking about 1968, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought I can use great big steel square sections to do this desk for this engineer. And thank God I won the competition and they couldn't get rid of me. So I continued my education. So that's the beginning. I left college and my first job was with architects. And basically they asked me to do the interior design of a 5-star intercontinental hotel at Hyde Park Corner. So I never stayed in a hotel, 5-star hotel before, so I had no idea how I was going to be designing this. So this then basically creates problems, and there I was sneaking into all the London hotels, trying, with a tape measure, measuring things, learning what a bar means, what a restaurant, what a coffee shop, etc. And somehow I managed my way around, and the design director of Pan American, because it was owned by Pan American at the time, actually liked me. So the next opportunity I had was to, they wanted a tapestry, the client wanted a tapestry, and this was to hang in the lobby, and they got in touch with some famous artists, paid a lot of money, but the client didn't like what they produced. So I said, can I have a go at it? And the client said, okay, Sevil, what would you like in this place, for if we like the design? And at the time I was about to get married, so I said, could you please talk to my boss and I can have 2 days off so I can get married? So, changing times, I'm just also, hopefully, in this 52 years, trying to tell you how things have changed. If you had a baby, you didn't take time off as a woman. If you were getting married, they didn't give you time off. You just had to find a time to get married. Anyway, I was lucky. They liked what I produced for the tapestry, and I got my 2 days off for my wedding. The tapestry now is at the Victoria and Albert Museum, so it is actually a pride of mine that I've designed when I was 23 years old. So then I went back to Turkey, got married to an Englishman, and went back to Turkey. And so design or architecture wasn't really real in Turkey at the time, apart from one company I found who was, my boss was trained at Sorbonne and he was a modernist, and anyway I started working there. One of the projects that I got involved with was the President's Palace in Ankara. Shah of Iran was coming and it had to be the guest house. Now, okay, again, you just don't know. At college they don't teach you what it means to design a president's palace, what it means to do a restaurant, what it means to do a hotel. Anyhow, you find your way around. So I designed this space. It was a lot of refurbishment, and I particularly designed the chandelier, because those days nothing existed in Turkey. Everything had to be handmade, hand done, etc. To the sockets, to the furniture, to everything. And we spent most of our time with craftsmen, and I have to say in that 4 years I learned a lot. So anyway, the place finished. Shah was going to stay there, and the president of Turkey basically invited us for a cup of tea underneath the chandelier. So my boss is sitting on the left-hand side sofa, the president and the president's wife, and lots of people around servicing us. And all of a sudden, the chandelier went bang, and the glass just dropped all over the president, all over us. And thank God none of us got scratched even. And the president was terribly nice. We had good presidents those days. Anyway, he said, well, shit happens. Don't worry about it, dear, and it will get all sorted out before Shah turns up that was 2 days later the Shah was going to come. And anyway, I was terribly embarrassed. I never really knew whether it was my fault for not checking probably, or whether it was the craftsman's shop fault. But anyway, shit does happen. So having finished this job, 2 days before Shah and Diba arrived, security guys turned up and basically wrecked the place. They pulled out all the sockets, they pulled out the toilets, the basins, everything, because they were worried that there may be a bomb. So then you start all over again. Right, so then as a woman, you get a child. So there is a break because, you know, nobody's giving any presents for a designer who's got a baby. I gave a 4-year break. The architects I worked for previously rang me up and said, come on, it's time to come to work, and so on. So thank God I got my job back. I didn't have to prove much because I already worked for them. That is good. So we designed things, Coots Bank, Sports Center, etc. Very scared because obviously I lost my touch. Not very good, not even very good designs really. I'm still learning, and I'm still learning. The point is, as a woman, you're rearing a child and you got lots to do. So I will rush home, I'll feed my baby, I'll read her a story, I'll put her to bed, and then I'll take taxi back to the office and work till 12 o'clock at night to finish the work. Because, as many designers here must be aware, it is goddamn hard work being a designer. Anyway, that exhausted me, so at the end, as a mother, I thought maybe I resign. Although they made me an associate, I was good, I was going up and rising up. So I said, okay, I'll go freelance, so I'll have a bit more time for my child. So I went freelance and I started working in a, where is it? Can I point to there or do I point there? Somewhere there's a barge. So I rented a barge and started working from a barge. My first project was a hotel, and then I had like 10 people working for me, so a few years of this. I haven't put the real interiors of the hotel, they weren't very nice. I don't know how. I have improved, I really have improved. So seeing that I was kind of like, started getting expertise in hotel world, YRM, a big architectural firm, actually a PLC, 500 architects, interior designers, engineers, structural engineers, etc., multi-divisional company, invited me in to become a director at this very male company. And I was the first female director, I was the first foreign one, I was the first being brought from outside rather than growing from inside. So this was a big power struggle for me. I designed a hotel for BAA Airlines near Gatwick Airport, but it was tough. And the reason it was tough is that the whole board was full of men in suits. I had power suit, 80s, big shoulders and so on. But it was tough to actually deal with these guys. Whenever I achieved something, it was because I flashed my eyelids or I wore a short skirt, or and ever since, or I was very colorful. So ever since then, I've been wearing black. Okay, so I'm like, how can I be a man, but I'm not really a man? No, can I have a drink of water? I have no water. Yeah, so male-female power struggle. Trying to get myself accepted. Thanks. Badly interior designed, huh? So, anyway, in that struggle, in this big company of predominantly architects, and I liked working with architects because that's how I've been brought up at the university, that the architecture and interiors was the same thing. I was an interior architect, and interiors and buildings, it should be a holistic experience, but there was this big clash between the interiors department and the architectural department. Architects kind of did the building, and then the last minute they phoned us from down, so we were in the basement, down to the basement and saying, Sevil, could you please come up? We're now selecting finishes. And like, what? You know, is it walnut? Is it beech? Is it this? Anyway, I won a project on the back of the fact that I had short skirt, which was a big underwriting center in the middle of the finance area in London. It's still there. And it had an atrium, as you could see, a circular atrium, and because it was an underwriting center, circulation had to be really an important aspect of it. So I said to the architects, well, why don't we have some escalators in the center connecting all the rest of the building together, so there's a speed of communication between groups. And I said, then why don't we hang it from the ceiling, from the roof? The architects didn't shine to this, and they said, no way, we can't do this, why not, etc. So there was a big confrontation between the architect and the interior designer. At the end, I went to the structural engineers, very quietly, to the chairman of the structural engineering department, and I said, this is my vision, is it possible? And he said, of course, it's a big challenge, why not? So it happened, there you are. And these escalators gone up, it's being held by 4 rods, whatever, and that was my win. Now, why did I have to be a manipulative bitch who had to go via, I see all the females laughing, you know, I can hear it. That's a female laughter. Where I had to go around the back of everybody, go to the chairman and say, can we hang these things? Why couldn't we collaborate? You know, why was I not respected? Is that because I was an interior designer, or is it because I was a woman? Well, you know, things got better. So at the end, I was doing more management in this department, being a director, than designing. So I thought, enough is enough, 5 years of this power struggle. I'll go and set up on my own and be design-based rather than management-based. So I got together with Gary, who was my life partner and my work partner, and we set up Sevil Peach. How did we set it up? Of course, we had no jobs, no projects, and we were in our house. So all of a sudden, work started coming in. It's an embarrassing house. It's an old Victorian house somewhere in London. And all of a sudden, we had 13 people working in the house. We were working on the sofa. We were working in the garden. We were working, this is the kitchen. That one is kitchen. That one is living room. And yeah, it was overwhelming. So, and what did we do while we were working from home? We designed Sony, who never really asked to see my office because there was no way I could invite them to my home, as you have seen. They were very good. We didn't have to do that. And then, so that was one of the projects. We managed to do that. Still quite corporate. It's my first office design ever. And we couldn't push the boundaries. Japanese was very strict about what they wanted. So it's about a reception, 8 meeting rooms, 50 people sitting, etc. Very prescribed kind of brief, which is what we had in the beginning of 90s. Now, when I was working in a corporate office, I really didn't want to design any offices, although we did a lot of offices in this YRM company, because I didn't know how an office ought to be. All I knew is that an office is a horrible place to work in. You know, it's a big graveyard of desks and chairs and black and grey and gloomy and so on. So I had no solution for this. But I think I found a solution, because when we were working from home, I thought, well, why can't an office be like a home? And so really our beginning for the work we've done for offices so far is really based on our experiences in the home. Sitting by the fire, sitting on the sofa because we had to, sitting in the garden, you know, we were flexible. And of course this was easier to achieve at a later stage due to means of technology as well. So Barclays Property Holdings has asked us to put two floors of offices into one. They wanted to do cost saving, and the money that they were going to save from the rent, which was a very small amount, was going to pay for the refurbishment. So there we basically said, okay, non-territorial work, nobody owns a desk apart from a PA, and sofas. This doesn't work right. Okay, here we are. Toolboxes. You come and pick up a toolbox, put it in a trolley, go and work wherever you want to work. So this was 1996. It was groundbreaking and a big milestone for us. An amazing corporate client who allowed us to do this. So nobody sat in the sofas first, and until the chairman, I said to the chairman, you know, please go and sit at the sofa when you visit this office, maybe other people. So he did, and from then onwards, everybody was booking the sofa. So sofa became the workplace. So very nice. Meanwhile, you know, the house is all full, and we found a place finally to move to. And, well, we didn't have any work, so we built our own office and waited for some work to arrive. And what came next was just really based, you know, made us who we are, really, is our first experience with Vitra. So the arrow shows Grimshaw building. Whoops, sorry. There we are. Mr. Feldbaum, chairman of Vitra, basically got in touch with us, and having listened to the story of the Barclays Bank, said, would you like to do our office? And I thought, is this, have I heard this right? Is this true? Anyway, and it happened. So that's what we did. This was their offices when we first took over. Yeah, like what you see in many office buildings, you know, screens, etc., and so on. And we've turned it into this, created gardens in the middle of the office, and non-territorial work, soft working, lots and lots of ideas which set Vitra up as a big cultural change. So the design became a vehicle for cultural change and an organizational change. Our relationship with Vitra then continued on for 21 years. We've designed exhibitions for them, we've designed showrooms for them, we still continue to design offices for them, and it became a love affair, really. At the end, it's this amazing dialogue between a creative client or an understanding client. You know, we're all as good as our clients. You know, without the right client, you can't really, you know, you have to have the inspiration. You have to love your client. You have to learn from your client. Client learns from us too. So it's an amazing relationship, really. So that's, you know, set it up. So what can I say? You know, from Vitra as a pyramid, then came lots of other work. Novartis, Mex in a lot of work from Holland, actually, Spaces, Deloitte, Swiss Re headquarters, small projects, big projects, they just came in. I think we tapped onto something in terms of creating human offices. I suppose it was a flagship, and it had an international influence. I think I can say that, can't I, Robert? So really one courageous project leads on to lots of others. So do not be afraid to be courageous, to challenge. That's exactly what we did with Vitra. We just challenged, and we still challenged them. Then came, so these aren't coincidence. It is hard work. It is really hard work. And I know that as a designer, I have improved and improved and improved. The other day when we were doing this PowerPoint in the office, all the young ones sitting over there were having a good laugh at my work from the 80s. You know, like, oh, you did that? Really? You know, one improves, you learn, you mature. So with Novartis, they invited us to a competition, pharmaceutical company in Basel, where they wanted to define how they should work. And based on that, then they were going to put these new buildings in the campus. But if they didn't know how they were going to work, how were they going to brief the architects? And the architects are Frank Gehry, Chipperfield, you name it, all the big names were, it's like a sweetie shop, the campus. So we won the competition, and it was finance department. They gave us the most boring department possible to work with, and they were living in a corridor like this. Basically, we moved them to that. It's the same space, basically. And the corridor is how they communicated. And in fact, when I asked, this is where we also started our user relationship, talking to people and understanding what it is that they're doing and how they would like to possibly work, is one of the guys said, well, you know, I said, what's the spirit of this company? And he said, well, I joined this corridor 3 months ago. And I was like, he hasn't joined a company, he joined a corridor. And anyway, so we got them out of the corridor into open plan, and basically open plan is what Novartis decided to do and brief their architects with all the components that we actually offered to them. And they called it multi-space. It's just another word. There's a lot of isms that goes on. And based on multi-space idea, i.e. choices throughout your workplace, within your workplace, we built the first building with Dina and Dina. A good collaboration with an architect this time, which was a change for me. And a good learning process as well for them and us. So we did the first building, and then from then onwards, a bit like Vitra, it has been a continuous relationship with Novartis and Novartis's architects with global consultancy. So we work with Alejandro, Surgeson Bates, Kenga Kuma, many of their architects in their buildings, defining how their interiors ought to be. So we come back to Amsterdam. Frederic has got in touch with us with this new idea of co-working. So this was, I think 20 years ago. We got this date wrong, guys. No, 10 years ago, sorry. 20 years, 10 years? Okay, well, whatever. So we did the first interiors for them of co-working. Now, everybody knows about co-working. I don't have to tell you that, because since then, everyone's doing co-working. But what we like so much in this project, and every project is a challenge to us, and a learning process, is that it is making use of, it's adding value to all buildings that are no longer in use. So for us, it's a very sustainable approach to take these shitty buildings and then turn them into something magical for the people and give some reuse to it. So Again, same as Vitra, Novartis, Spaces has become a long relationship. Again, another love affair. I think we probably now finishing the 7th of our projects, which is this one in Amstel. And it's still getting fine-tuned, but, you know, a long relationship. How did we manage to do this with like 5 people in our office? We're very small. It's because coming out of a 500-person company, we said we will never get big. So we only take on work that is not driven by money, but much more about relationship. Can we learn something from it? Do we like this client? And is it going to challenge us? Is the criteria? And then we don't take on too much work. So it is really 3 projects, 4 projects a year, and that's it. Then we can do things, and then we can enjoy working, and we take pleasure in what we do. We've just finishing Kvadrat headquarters in Denmark, another refurbishment project, another cultural change. Swiss Re headquarters by the lakeside in Zurich. And this is an interesting one because this is really corporate client, very, very corporate client. And they're doing 100% non-territorial work. Basically, nobody has a desk. And that's quite radical. Not of our choice, but it's the client choice. So we then had to do something that suited them. So big global presence from Shanghai to LA. And wonderful, really. I cannot complain. One is that it is amazing to work with different cultures. So you're not only learning design and design criteria, but you're actually learning about other countries, other people, and how they live, how they work, and can we improve their lives. Yeah. Never stop loving your work. It's an amazing profession. I enjoyed 52 years of it. I still do, and I'm still learning, and we're still continuing on. And I don't think I was born talented. I just learned to be creative. I'm done.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your insights, and thank you for sharing your learnings. And thanks for sharing your mistakes from the early beginnings, because I think these people, many of them are still very young. So it must be quite encouraging to see if you make a lot of mistakes in the beginning, that you can still end up where you are today. And
Yes,
well, we've been discussing earlier today the new normal. Actually, you have defined the new normal when it comes to offices. It started in your house, the home office,
Yeah.
and now it's well, whatever you can find in offices around the world. So all of these co-working spaces and open plan offices with non-territorial working spaces or deskless working spaces, they all have originated in your home. Must be a fantastic feeling.
Yes, what is true. It really is true. It has originated from home. You know, it wasn't some, you know, didn't have some this intellectual, you know,
Discourse.
light bulb that says, actually, this is the way it should be. It's just that it was so pleasant to work from home. We had a cat, we had a dog, you know, it was cold, we had the fireplace, you know, burning away. We cooked food for each other, and it was really a strong feeling, you know, between us all. It was a very lovely group. We worked all night. We had pizza takeaways, and you know, it was very pleasant. The only person who didn't like it was my daughter.
Why is that?
Well, we invaded the house. I mean, every room had people working in it.
What does she do now? Is she a designer?
A social worker.
Ah, okay, that explains a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you look at today's workspaces, we see a lot of experiments with toys, with gyms, with rooms for workouts, with all kinds of gimmicks, trying to activate people and trying to create a so-called healthy atmosphere for people. What's your perspective on that? Slides in offices, swings in offices.
I don't think you need it, huh? I think it is just, I mean, sometimes I open up magazines and I say, oh my God, we've created a monster, you know, when I see some of the offices that are being
alterations
done.
of your ideas.
Well, I can't say
taken
that
further.
were completely our ideas, but yeah, it is taken further. I mean, I think when we did Vitra, which was probably the first big office project we've done, we did put a billiard table. But we asked the people, we said, would you like to have it? Was that going to be disturbing for you or not? So they said, yeah, we'll have it. I asked Mr. Feldbaum, I said, what do you think? He said, oh, well, if they want it, no. He wasn't really that keen on the idea. So we put a billiard table, and it wasn't game. What they were doing is they're doing the thinking process when they were playing this, right? So, yeah, but I don't think to be creative you need to go down a slide, you know, in that office environment. So I think it also very much depends on the type of company, you know, what their spirit is, what they're doing. But I don't think one needs to inject creativity, inspiration by necessarily bringing in, you know, these gimmicks. I think you need to really think hard about what workplace is, and no, I don't. You know, we don't do it, and
But
people enjoy being in the workplaces that we design. I mean, we don't need to sleep, for example.
Yeah.
That was something that I always wanted in an office. We haven't had the opportunity to create it. We tried it at Microsoft. I suggested it to Mr. Feldbaum at the time. He said, we're not ready for it. But, you know, at a later date, I think they considered it.
To put a bed in an office, you mean?
To put a chaise, maybe, you know, or the idea, it doesn't matter. You know, you can sleep. In China, they sleep all the time. After lunch, if you go into a Chinese office, they're all heads down on the tabletop, and they're all asleep. And it's completely accepted. So really, it's not about necessarily creating a space, but the idea that it helps to have 10-minute closing your eyes and sleeping, and it shouldn't be scorned at. So it is not so much about like you got to create this space to put people in to sleep, etc., but actually creating a culture within the company that trusts and actually enables people to be empowered, really. And if they sleep, they sleep. Yeah, fine, okay.
So in your opinion, it's not necessary to add a yoga studio to an office, to insert a spa or a fitness room?
That's tomorrow's panel discussion, no?
It actually is, but
But
now we have you here.
no, I think you could. You know, if you haven't got a health center, spa or gym nearby the particular office you're designing, you could suggest that to a client. Why not? You know, a lot of people do like doing yoga and keeping fit, so you can have a break at lunch and go and do this, and it's great. Yeah, it could.
Another
And
point.
some of Swiss Re, they got a big gym, for example. So when it's appropriate, we introduce it, but it's not a must. It really depends on which country, which region, which area, what kind of a building, and what kind of a budget you have. You know, at the end, there are all these realities as well that defines what we do.
So another thing that struck me in your lecture was that you have been fighting against architects.
Always fighting.
And this is exactly the reason why we started Frame in the beginning, because we had the feeling that interior architecture, interior design was kind of non-existing at the moment, which is 20 years ago. What has happened ever since? Are you still fighting against architects?
No, because I think if you look at our slides from the late 80s and that whole power struggle in a very male organization, I'm moving on to working with architects because
So
they're coming to us to work with.
So they changed. You didn't.
Domeron, David Chipperfield, as I said, Kenga Kuma, Sergison Bates. These are all people that have understood the value of interiors to a certain degree.
To which degree?
To the point of inviting us to work with them.
But what do
collaborate with them.
Why do you say to a certain degree? That does mean perhaps that
we do have still confrontations when we get down to the table and when we put the paper down and the pencil and and start talking about how it should be, what it should be.
So on what issues do you tend to disagree with architects when it comes to interior design?
Well, because they're forever, I mean that could be with an interior designer too, they're forever considering the beautification of the building, the lines, the this, and we come to our interiors through people, user experience, people experience, human environments, etc. So the architect comes to it from much more arty in the way they look at their buildings. Egos get involved. And we all have egos. Of course, when we're designing too, quite often we do something and then we pull back and we say, okay, yeah, great idea, but how about this, how about that, and how can we make it so that it is better for people? And, we suppress that ego issue as much as we can.
And so from your point of view, how has the profession of interior design changed? Has it become a mature profession, or do you still need to explain to your neighbors what it is that you're doing?
I think with the help of you guys, it is getting better. That there is a platform that says interior design. I still call it interior architecture. My course was interior architecture, so we continued with that. I think we still got a long way to go. I think we still got a long way to go to gain that respect.
Why is that?
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to tell names, but when I asked some institution in England why they didn't include interiors in their awards, and everything else is included, digital, this graphics, architecture, landscape, etc., but no interiors, the answer I got is, well, you're good, Sevil, but
it's not
you're
much
an
of a profession.
Well, this is not true.
Yeah,
you can't say we're an exception.
And the director of this institution has been on the jury of our previous award scheme. So
but I'm not supposed to mention names. You gave it all away, Robert. Yeah. So I am puzzled why they're treating us as second-class citizens.
What about your position as a female in this business? Did that change?
Yes, I think it was much harder at site. When I go for site visits to construction site and they're really big butch boys, working, and then they just see this little woman coming and bossing them around, and they didn't like it much. So, but that's changing. That's also changing.
So that's a real positive change.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like from T-square to Z-square. We've come to, I kind of mess around with the computer. I'm not perfect. Am I? I need others to help me, but, other things have changed as well. So
is there anybody in the audience who would like to ask a question to Sevil? I think we're at the end of the day. So I think we're all in for a drink.
Yes.
To celebrate or to relax or to catch up with friends or colleagues. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your life with us as a designer.
And thank you for honoring us. Honestly,
the honoring will
a surprise.
The honoring will be really there tonight.
Okay.
Then
we'll look forward to that.
Thanks again. Warm applause.